Now, Ben, we're going to go to charitable journalism.
Indeed, local journalism. This is the big focus. We talked about neighbourhoods earlier. I've talked about local journalism for the past couple of weeks, and this really is going to be a big focus for the next year or two, I think. Just to remind you, we spoke about this report last week, Public Interest News Foundation, Regenerating Local News in the UK. They see the current ecosystem of news as delivering fragile communities, victimised by disinformation, leading to a withering democracy. Democracy is dying, but we're going to move to this new model with community newsrooms, whatever that is, a new type of local council, right? So they've transformed the state, right? And an empowered community, flourishing democracy, big tech, much more tightly controlled through legislation. And importantly, actually in the centre there, as we'll get into, the involvement of philanthropy, rich people injecting money into the media ecosystem. What could possibly go wrong? Now, I wanted to understand a bit more about where this report came from and this entire agenda, basically. And I've landed on this organisation, which is the Charitable Journalism Project, launched in 2022. And it describes itself as delivering policy and evidence to protect and develop public interest journalism. They love that term, public interest, which basically means for your own good. I think, actually. They've sort of re-engineered that to their own ends. So this is newsrooms, reading from the bottom, that work in the public interest, need support, easier access to charitable status, importantly, would help them secure a sustainable future. So this is a group of journalists, lawyers, funders, academics and media people working together to protect, apparently, and develop public interest journalism. A few people, just to show you what we're looking at here. So William Perrin is involved. Now, I've spoken about you for the past 3 weeks, William. You're getting absolutely everywhere there. This is the guy that was boasting about being instrumental in establishing Ofcom. He's absolutely involved in this still. Samir Padania, who again I spoke about last week, he's on Perrin's foundation, and he's also linked into Open Society's Nesta, the International Fund for Public Interest Media. Fascinating guy. Probably going to have to do a bit more of an exploration on him over the coming weeks because he's a big thinker in this area, really driving the agenda. And then this woman on the right, Kitty von Bertel, who is a trustee of the charity, and she is co-founder of Multitudes Foundation, who I've spoken about a lot previously, which is a political organisation. It's funded by Daniel Sachs and Open Societies. It's part of the Apolitical Network, and its express purpose is to break existing power structures. That's what Multitudes Foundation says that it's there to do, to break existing power structures. She's also involved in this organisation, which is Luminate. Well, she was involved at the time that this charity was founded. Right now, this is established by a guy called Pierre Omidyar. He was one of the founders of eBay, so French billionaire, and he envisions a future where everyone has power to shape society. Again, this is about the transformation of society. They're there to ensure that people have the information, rights, and power to drive change. They're involving themselves in information ecosystems, promoting participation and dissent, importantly, but only dissent that serves their purposes. And it's working across Africa, Asia, Latin America. And actually, I thought that this fund was only working across what they would probably call the global south. But actually, it is one of the vehicles for CJP. Apologies, jumping ahead there. Which is interesting. It shows they're working on the ground in the UK, importantly, right? Now, we're going to hear from George Brock, who is the chairman of the Charitable Journalism Project, talking back in 2022 to the DCMS Committee Local News Inquiry.
Why is it philanthropic funding of journalism is less prevalent in the UK than other countries like the US?
The Charitable Journalism Project works on exactly this issue, and we would like to see more organisations, more local newsrooms to apply and succeed and registering as charities, which would give them a great advantage. There is perhaps more money sloshing around in the American system than may ever slosh around in the British system, but if they're registered as charities, they can take donations large and small. There's a tax break, and there's a reputational gain as well. If you're a registered charity, obviously you're regulated. As far as I know, the Burngreave Messenger is the only local news provider registered as a charity. There's been some shift of attitude on the part of the Charity Commission recently. They've publicised the decision to register as a charity the Public Interest News Foundation, and they registered Charitable Journalism Project as well. And we think that they are starting to think more flexibly about this, but we would like to see this opening wider and more publications go through it. Wouldn't suit every local publication to do that, but we think there are really quite a lot, and our next project will probably be to look at exactly what this number is. We think there are quite a few local news projects which would gain from this and could, strengthen their evidently often very ropey finances.
They want more local newsrooms registering as charities. Yeah, apparently news is not an industry anymore, it's charitable. And this is a total inversion of what it's supposed to be, right? It's supposed to operate in a marketplace and not be owned and controlled by philanthropic wealth. Ultimately, the people that these titles are supposed to be investigating and holding to account, right? It's not just the state that's the issue, it's the money side of the power and money equation as well. What else does charitable status do? Well, first of all, it makes them subject to greater regulation. Yes, we talked about Ofcom over the past few weeks. The Charity Commission will also now be in the mix as well. Right, so that again is the method through which greater and tighter control is going to be applied. It's going to give you access supposedly to free money, so make it possible for big funds like Luminate to inject money into this ecosystem so that they can strengthen their ropey finances, which was quite an interesting term that he ended up on, which is really the point here, right? Which is, why are their finances ropey? Yeah, and it's to do with this, right? It's the destruction of Western economies in order to place more power and wealth into the hands of a global 1%. That's the problem. Yeah, and getting that global 1% that has engineered this situation deliberately to start giving money to local newspapers is not going to fix the issue. It's going to exacerbate the issue, isn't it? That's what's going to happen. Right. And what else has been going on? Well, big tech's entered the mix, really importantly. So here's some statistics looking at the advertising revenues globally of publishers, TV channels, and Meta, aka Facebook. Right. So we can see that TV has gone down about 25% since 2016. These numbers run up to 2023. So it's a 7-year period. It's gone from 200 billion to around 150 billion. Big drop. Publishing's even worse. It's gone from just under 100 billion global revenues to just over 50. So there's nearly a 50% drop in the publishing space. And who's in the ascendant? Big tech, exemplified here by Meta. Yeah, you've gone from, I think it was around 25 billion revenue in 2016 to nearly 150 in 2023. And actually, it surpassed, Meta's ad revenues surpassed the whole of the global fixed linear television industry. All TV advertising, Meta surpassed it in 2024, and it surpassed the publishing industry in 2019. And what was the big driver that really pushed it over the edge? Well, it was COVID, wasn't it? That's what happened. Yeah, and what does your man George Brock have to say about this from the Charity Journalism Project? Well, he says in this article from The Conversation, coronavirus is killing quality journalism. Here's one possible lifeline. He says the coronavirus crash should impel us as never before to look for new models, both editorial and commercial, and to drive innovation, new ways of doing things, and imagination up a gear. Never, as the saying goes, let a really good crisis go to waste. That's a really interesting term there from George Brock. Sorry, not Greg Brock. Look at me, I made a mistake on the slide. And ultimately, I think this is, and I've used this term before, I'm going to use it again. I think that this is what we're looking at, right? The side effect is the intention, the COVID lockdown, amongst everything else, by the way, because I think that big tech was ultimately a way of destroying the media ecosystem. COVID was a way of accelerating that destruction, and that was deliberate. The side effect is the intention. Yeah, CT. Thank you very much, Michael Driver, for that. So much more to come on local media. This really is the battleground, where the global agenda and local people are going to have to slug it out. So.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, it's so stark on that graph, seeing that leap up in 2020. Thank you very much, Ben.